relationship with my father, which was very complicated and difficult. My dad was a very, I come from a middle class, kind of blue-collar home, and my dad was just of that generation, where it's just like, he was Clint Eastwood, and less is more. Simple grunts is how he...
We always tease each other. He was, after I gave birth, he was like, oh my gosh, if I lost you and I, went to the park with our 3 kids, I mean, think of the ladies I could... This is a horrible thing to say. And he's like, I mean, I've got a long list. And I was like, oh, really? Because I just have one on my list. I didn't have anyone on my list.
And then it wasn't funny anymore.
No, it's so much more of a burn. He's like, wait, who? And I was like, okay, think of someone. Bob Newhart, I don't know.
Ryan Reynolds has long enjoyed the adoration of fans, capturing their hearts with his quick wit, charming demeanor, and blockbuster performances. His marriage to Blake Lively, another Hollywood icon, only amplified their status as a power couple, a duo seemingly immune to the dramas and controversies that so often surround the entertainment industry. Yet recent events have shaken that image, as Reynolds and Lively find themselves embroiled in a shocking courtroom battle that has left both their fans and industry insiders in disbelief. What began as a creative dispute over a film project spiraled into a full-blown legal war, pitting Lively against her co-star and director Justin Baldoni, with Reynolds now caught in the middle of the escalating drama. At the center of the conflict is the film adaptation of the best-selling novel It Ends With Us, a project initially seen as a passion piece. Lively, who was not only starring in the film, but also contributing to its creative direction, clashed early on with Baldoni over their differing visions for the movie. Lively pushed for a stylish, bold reimagining of the story, infused with humor and high-fashion moments. She envisioned a version that would appeal to modern audiences, balancing the novel's heavier themes with moments of levity and visual flair. Baldoni, on the other hand, was determined to stay faithful to the raw, emotional depth of the book, resisting any attempts to deviate from the original tone. At first glance, this seemed like just another creative disagreement, a common occurrence in the world of big-budget film productions. But what started as a difference in artistic direction quickly escalated into something far more intense. Tensions behind the scenes began to mount, and soon the conflict spilled into the public eye. Lively, unwilling to be sidelined in what she saw as a crucial creative process, took a bold step, filing an official complaint against Baldoni. She accused him of systematically shutting her out of key creative decisions and distorting the story's emotional core in favor of a glossy, superficial version that stripped away the rawness that had made the novel a bestseller. According to Lively, her concerns were dismissed repeatedly by Baldoni, leaving her with no choice but to take legal action. Initially, fans were stunned by the feud. Lively had cultivated a reputation for authenticity and advocacy in Hollywood, standing out as a figure who not only starred in films, but was also deeply invested in the creative process. It wasn't long before many of her supporters rallied behind her, viewing her actions as a stand against a male-dominated industry that often sidelines women's voices. Meanwhile, Baldoni, known for his emotionally charged storytelling and sensitive approach to difficult subjects, found himself in the unexpected position of having to defend his artistic vision. He remained relatively quiet at first, but it soon became clear that he would not back down without a fight. As the public watched the drama unfold, Baldoni responded with a counterstrike, a defamation lawsuit against Lively. He claimed that her accusations were not only unfounded, but were damaging to his reputation and career. According to Baldoni, Lively's version of events didn't align with the reality of the production, and he hinted that he had evidence to prove it. The legal battle was now set, with both sides preparing for a high-stakes courtroom showdown that no one had anticipated. It didn't take long for the case to take a more serious turn. Baldoni, in an effort to bolster his defense, dropped a bombshell that turned the legal battle on its head. He claimed to have undeniable proof that Lively's story was full of inconsistencies. According to Baldoni, crucial documents, emails, texts, and meeting notes provided by Lively did not match the official production records. And even more damning, he suggested that someone, either Lively herself or someone working on her behalf, might have tampered with evidence to strengthen her claims. This allegation of evidence manipulation took the case to a whole new level. What had started as a dispute over creative direction was now inching into criminal territory, with potential consequences that could end careers. The accusations of tampering sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. If true, such actions could destroy Lively's reputation and bring her career to a screeching halt. Manipulating evidence in a legal dispute is not just unethical, it's illegal. Baldoni's legal team, which had already called in digital forensic analysts to examine the evidence, revealed that they had found suspicious irregularities in the files Lively had provided. Some of the messages that Lively allegedly sent at specific times appear to have been altered or created after the fact. Even more alarming, a few of the messages referenced events that hadn't yet occurred on the official production timeline. The findings were enough to shift the tide of the case significantly. With the case spiraling into chaos, one person remained notably silent: Ryan Reynolds. As Lively's husband and one of Hollywood's most beloved figures.
Just read it, because I was looking for movies that could be commercial and speak to the human experience. And
Were you reading romance novels?
And I had never read a romance novel.
Never?
And she said, just trust me, read it. So I read it, and by the end of the book, I couldn't even read the text on the page because I was crying so much. My wife was in bed next to me, and she's, I got snot coming out of my nose.
I for sure fell short, and you worked really hard on that, and the way you framed it, and how that made you feel. I just want to say thank you for sharing that with me. That takes a lot of trust and vulnerability, and I feel really grateful that you feel safe enough to tell me that that's how you feel and share that with me. And I'm really sorry. I f***ed up. That is a fail on my part. One thing you should know about me is I will admit and apologize when I fail. I am far from perfect. I am a very flawed man, as my wife will attest. And and I'm gonna f*** up. I'm gonna say the wrong thing. I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth. I'm gonna piss you off, probably, but I will always apologize.
Reynolds had always been her biggest supporter in public, often speaking glowingly of her work ethic and creative talents. Their playful, affectionate social media presence only reinforced the image of a couple deeply in sync both personally and professionally. However, as rumors began to circulate about tensions behind the scenes, some insiders hinted that Reynolds might not have been fully on board with Lively's approach to the project. Some reports claimed that Reynolds had initially clashed with Baldoni over the film's direction, only to later change his perspective after gaining a deeper understanding of the creative process. As the legal battle escalated, speculation grew about whether Reynolds would be called to testify. Although he was not officially part of the production, it was well known that Lively had involved him in private script discussions and creative meetings. She had leaned on his comedic instincts, hoping to inject the film with moments of levity to balance its more serious themes. If Reynolds had witnessed key conversations or decisions that contradicted Lively's claims, his testimony could become a pivotal factor in the case. When the day finally came for Reynolds to take the stand, the media frenzy was at its peak. News outlets swarmed the courthouse, eager for any new developments in what had already become one of Hollywood's most explosive legal battles. As Reynolds arrived, stepping out of a sleek black SUV, it was clear that this was no ordinary public appearance for the usually charismatic actor. He appeared somber, serious, and visibly tense, far from the wisecracking, carefree persona that fans were used to seeing. Once inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was electric. Every word from Reynolds' testimony was eagerly anticipated, as it had the potential to either solidify or unravel Lively's case. Under oath, Reynolds wasted no time in clarifying that he was not an official part of the film's creative team. However, he confirmed that Lively had invited him into private discussions during pre-production, seeking his input on comedic elements and bouncing ideas off him as she worked to fine-tune moments of levity in the script. According to Reynolds, Lively was enthusiastic about injecting humor into the project, actively brainstorming jokes and playful sequences to keep audiences engaged despite the film's heavy subject matter. But then came the moment that shifted the courtroom's mood. When asked if he had ever witnessed Baldoni outright dismissing Lively's creative input, Reynolds' response was measured but clear: no, He could not recall any instance where Baldoni had shut down Lively's ideas or refused to consider her suggestions. His testimony painted a picture of a collaborative, if sometimes contentious, creative process, one in which disagreements were standard but not hostile. This revelation directly contradicted the narrative that had been circulating in Lively's lawsuit, and the weight of Reynolds' words sent a ripple through the courtroom. As the testimony continued, Reynolds admitted that he felt conflicted about taking the stand. He acknowledged that it was difficult to testify in a case involving his wife, but he also emphasized that he felt a moral obligation to tell the truth. What remained unclear, however, was whether his conflict stemmed from the allegations of evidence tampering or from a deeper sense of loyalty to both his wife and the creative process. The public was left to wonder whether Reynolds' testimony had been influenced by his desire to protect his marriage or by his commitment to setting the record straight. The most shocking part of Reynolds' testimony came when he was pressed about the digital inconsistencies uncovered by Baldoni's legal team. Specifically, the court wanted to know if Reynolds had ever seen the emails that Lively claimed to have sent to Baldoni, where she allegedly voiced her concerns about the film's comedic direction and fashion choices. Reynolds confirmed that he had seen some of Lively's messages, but he noted that the tone of those exchanges was not nearly as hostile as her lawsuit suggested. In fact, he recalled moments of casual banter and humor in the emails, suggesting that the discussions around the film's comedic elements were far from contentious at the time. Then came the revelation that sent shockwaves through the courtroom. When asked if he noticed anything unusual about the emails, such as references to events that hadn't yet happened, Reynolds hesitated before admitting that some of the threads seemed out of order. He speculated that this could have been a simple organizational fluke, but the implication was clear. Something about the communication records didn't sit right. The courtroom buzzed as Reynolds revealed that some of the messages Lively had shown him while preparing for the lawsuit didn't perfectly match the ones in his own inbox. This statement, while based on Reynolds' personal observations, raised serious questions about the authenticity of the evidence Lively had presented. Lively's legal team immediately objected, arguing that Reynolds was speculating and that his statements were not based on hard evidence. However, the judge overruled the objection, acknowledging the potential significance of Reynolds' testimony while reminding the jury to weigh his words carefully. The recess that followed was filled with whispers and speculation. Had Reynolds just turned on his wife? Or was he simply trying to clarify a misunderstanding before the situation spiraled further out of control? More importantly, had Lively misrepresented their creative collaboration to paint Baldoni as the villain after the film's fan base pushed back against a lighter tone? As the trial continued, the courtroom remained tense. Lively, seated just a few feet away from Reynolds, maintained a rigid posture throughout his testimony, never once making eye contact with him. Her legal team scrambled to mitigate the damage, arguing that Reynolds, not being an official part of the production, had only seen fragments of the full picture. They emphasized that Lively's frustration with Baldoni had built up over time, and Reynolds may not have been aware of the full extent of her clashes with the director. Yet, the core issue remained. Reynolds' testimony did not support the central claim of Lively's lawsuit, that Baldoni had steamrolled her vision for the film and imposed comedic elements against her wishes. Once court resumed, Lively's attorneys launched an aggressive cross-examination of Reynolds, attempting to discredit his testimony. They pressed him on whether he had ever witnessed Baldoni outright dismiss or belittle Lively's feedback. Reynolds hesitated before answering, but when he did, his response was firm. No, he had not. While he acknowledged that creative disagreements were common in filmmaking, he made it clear that those disagreements had never crossed the line into disrespect or open disregard for Lively's ideas. The questioning took an even more personal turn when Lively's attorneys asked if she had ever confided in him about feeling pressured or ignored by Baldoni. Reynolds admitted that she had vented to him about the usual production stresses, but he reiterated that she had never claimed to be completely shut out or steamrolled during the process. His calm, measured responses only added to the tension in the room. The stakes were high, and everyone present understood the gravity of the moment. Reynolds' words had the potential to unravel his wife's entire case. The final moments of the cross-examination were particularly chilling. Lively's legal team insinuated that Reynolds might have his own motives for testifying the way he did, suggesting that he might be distancing himself from the scandal to protect his future business interests. They hinted at his deep connections with Disney, the entertainment giant that had supported Baldoni from the start of the project. Reynolds, however, remained composed, calmly denying that his testimony had been influenced by any external pressures. He made it clear that his sole intention was to provide an honest account of what he had seen and heard during the film's development. The fallout from Reynolds' testimony was immediate. Headlines across the entertainment world dissected every word, every gesture, and every possible implication. Fans who had once adored the playful, unshakable bond between Reynolds and Lively were now left stunned and conflicted. Had Reynolds just delivered the fatal blow to Lively's legal battle? Or was his testimony merely one piece of a much larger puzzle? A puzzle that still held many shocking twists ahead? Baldoni, who had remained largely silent throughout the proceedings, finally broke his silence after Reynolds' testimony. Addressing the press in the courthouse hallway, he expressed a mix of relief and restraint. "I take no pleasure in seeing a couple go through this publicly," he admitted, but he didn't hide his sense of vindication. Reynolds' testimony had validated much of what Baldoni had been saying all along, that the comedic elements were part of an open, collaborative discussion, not a power play on his part. With Reynolds backing up his version of events, Baldoni's defamation countersuit now seemed much stronger. However, the legal battle wasn't just about the individuals involved anymore. Disney's role loomed large in the background, with many speculating about how much influence the entertainment giant had exerted behind the scenes. Some wondered if Disney was quietly relieved that Reynolds had given testimony that didn't paint Baldoni as the villain. After all, Reynolds had deep business ties with Disney through multiple ventures, and it wasn't a stretch to imagine that he might want to stay in the company's good graces. But not everyone was convinced. Would Reynolds really risk his marriage for corporate politics? Or was he simply telling the truth, no matter the cost? As the case continued to unfold, rumors swirled about the state of Reynolds and Lively's marriage. Were they now living apart? Had this legal dispute driven a wedge between them that could never be repaired? Lively remained publicly silent, but sources close to her painted a picture of someone deeply shaken and disappointed. Not just because of the lawsuit, but because her own husband hadn't fully backed her version of events. If Lively truly believed that Baldoni had hijacked her vision for the film, then Reynolds' testimony must have felt like an unthinkable betrayal. Yet, others argued that Reynolds had no choice but to tell the truth. The legal stakes were too high for him to skirt around the facts, especially when faced with evidence that suggested inconsistencies in Lively's claims. Legal analysts weighed in, noting that a spouse testifying against their partner carries a weight that no outside testimony can match. The fact that Reynolds had taken the stand against Lively made the case even messier, further blurring the line between personal loyalty and professional integrity. As the trial neared its conclusion, both sides prepared for the next critical moves. Lively's legal team hinted that they had more communications to present, arguing that once the full picture was laid out, it would prove that her role in the creative process had been deliberately sidelined. They suggested that Reynolds, despite his closeness to Lively, had never seen the full extent of her clashes with Baldoni and therefore couldn't fully understand the pressure she had been under. Meanwhile, Baldoni's camp was feeling emboldened. With Reynolds' testimony confirming that the comedic elements had mutual support, the foundation of Lively's lawsuit appeared to be on shaky ground. Throughout it all, Disney remained a key player, ready to support Baldoni's version of events with full force. The company's involvement raised questions about the role corporate interests might have played in shaping the narrative. Some speculated that Lively's claims had only shifted after fans criticized the film's direction on social media, suggesting that her lawsuit was a strategic pivot rather than a genuine grievance. In the days following Reynolds' testimony, speculation about Lively's next move only intensified. Some reports claimed that Lively had left the country at one point, overwhelmed by the scrutiny and pressure. Whether she had actually fled or simply taken a break to gather her thoughts was unclear, but one thing was certain: the legal battle had taken a toll on her personally and professionally. As the courtroom drama continued, the public's attention remained fixated on every new revelation. The stakes were no longer just about a lawsuit. They were about reputations, alliances, and the messy overlap between personal and professional lives in Hollywood. With every new piece of evidence, the case grew more complex, and the tension between Lively and Reynolds only deepened. The biggest question remained: did Ryan Reynolds' testimony deliver the fatal blow to Blake Lively's legal battle, or was it just one piece of a much larger puzzle? As the trial neared its conclusion, one thing was clear: this saga was far from over. Every headline, every leaked detail, and every new twist kept fans glued to the drama, as Hollywood's once untouchable golden couple walked the fine line between personal loyalty and professional truth. What started as a promising film adaptation of a beloved novel had spiraled into a cautionary tale. A story that showed just how quickly dream projects can unravel when creative tensions, legal battles, and unexpected betrayals collide. The outcome of this case could determine not only Lively and Reynolds' future, but also the fate of a film that once seemed destined for success. As the legal showdown continued, one thing was certain: Hollywood and the world would be watching every step of the way.